Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. This is your no-nonsense guide to the Call of the Dead Easter egg. I'll be explaining how to do it in both solo and in co-op, but the first several steps are the same no matter how many players you have in your game. So we'll start off here activating the power, and then when we get to a point where the egg diverges for solo and co-op paths, I'll make that obvious. So, power. In order to do this, open the spawn door towards the ship. Go up a couple of levels following the signs for the power switch, open the door, and then flip it on. Now that the power is activated, Pack-a-Punch will become available wherever the lighthouse beam stops to focus. And speaking of the lighthouse, that's the next target for our next step. The fastest way to get over there would be to use the flinger just underneath the power room. However, that will only work once power is on and also once the cave door in the spawn area is open. But no matter what route you take to get there, go down these stairs and make your way over to this suspicious door. You'll hear some dialogue asking who's there when you approach, and once that quiets down, melee the door and Nikolai will respond saying this.
Ah! I'm blind! I'm blind! In my eyes!
So long as you hear that Nikolai quote and the subsequent dialogue, you've started the Easter egg quest successfully. Next, in both solo and co-op, we need a fuse to repair the door. This can be found in one of 3 locations inside the PhD Flopper perk machine's room. The first spawn location is on the ground just here. The next is on this table, and the last is on this table next to PhD. Now, if you don't see the fuse in any of these locations, it might mean that you didn't actually finish getting all of the dialogue from the characters by the door, so go back over there, give it a couple of knives, make sure you've heard them out, and then go search for your fuse. Once you've got it, take the fuse back to the panel to the right of the door and interact to insert the fuse. You'll then hear more dialogue, and Nikolai will eventually activate a security system, and this causes a device next to the door to turn red. The following step is going to be the same in solo and in co-op. We simply have to turn this security system off by using explosives near 4 different red devices. And for each one, you know you're successful when its red light turns off. So the first one is right next to the Easter egg door. We're gonna throw a grenade pretty close to it, or cook it to explode in mid-air near the device, and that will turn off its light. The second is behind the lighthouse by the Stamina Up perk machine, and you can see it outside this window. You can't just throw a grenade in proximity to this one, as water surrounds the base of the device, and grenades that land in the water don't explode, so this one does need to be cooked. The way I recommend doing it is you hold the grenade until the crosshair pulses 4 times, and then throw it from this angle, and the grenade should then explode above the device and turn off its red light. The third is between the lighthouse and the ship on the right side of this path. We're going to do very similar to what we did for the second device for this one, so we're going to cook the grenade for 4 crosshair pulses, and then you're going to throw it, as I'm doing. The final device is by the back of the ship, seen via this corner just here. So just copy what I'm doing, cook and throw a grenade as I'm doing it, and you should get the device off. Now, this can be a bit of a fiddly step if you're not very good at throwing grenades. So here are a couple of extra tips just to make sure that you get through this smoothly. Number 1 is grenades replenish each round in this game, so if you do run out of nades, you can just go to the next round and you'll get a couple more. You can also ditch the frag grenades if you want and use Semtex instead, which can be purchased at the bow of the ship just here. One warning though is that your first instinct when throwing a Semtex is probably to land a direct hit on the red light, and while that is logical, it's actually very inconsistent with Semtex because it's hard to land it in the perfect spot. So instead, here's an example where I do a successful throw and I land it to the side of the device and it does work out. Now, if you really hate grenades, luckily, you don't have to even use them. You've got 2 other options, the crossbow and the map's wonder weapon, the scavenger. So assuming that all the extra tips that I gave you there have paid off, you should go ahead and like the video. That would be really nice of you. And then you're going to return to the Easter egg door and you're going to melee it once again. Your character will then say something like, "I've done what you asked me to do," which signals the start of the next step. Now, this is where solo players are going to kind of pause in the steps they need to do, and co-op players are going to have a couple of extra tasks that they need to complete. So solo players, sit tight for the time being, and I'll let you know when it's time for you to jump back in. You can also check for markers in the video description. So the next co-op step is the Vodka Bottle, and the bottle can be found hanging inside a frozen block of ice in one of 4 locations. You can search for the bottle immediately upon interacting with the door at the start of this step, so let's run through the locations now. One is to the left of the mystery box outside the lighthouse, just here. Another is on the side of the stairs, just here. The third is on this yellow railing to the right of the stairs that lead up to power, and the last is hanging off this ramp in between the 2 sections of the ship. To do this step properly, you need to have one player stand directly beneath the vodka bottle, and when they're there, the other player needs to melee the bottle from above, and that will knock it off its ledge. As it falls, the player on the ground below the bottle must press their interact button, and that's going to cause them to basically catch the bottle. So the best method is to wait for the bottle to be basically inside your character's head, and then hold your interact button, so square on PlayStation. And when done successfully, you'll see a bottle on your HUD in the bottom right, and that's how you know that you've done it correctly. However, if you fail to catch the bottle, it might be because you're holding interact before it reaches your body. You can also try spamming interact once it reaches you instead of just pressing it once. But luckily, if you do fail to catch it, it will immediately respawn at one of the other 3 locations. But obviously, if you can't find the bottle at any time, go to the next round and then take another look. So assuming you've caught the bottle this time, you're going to return to the Easter egg door, and you're going to insert the vodka into the vacuum tube just here. Then melee the door for more dialogue. And this is a point for the entire Easter egg. If you're ever like, where am I again in the egg? Have I done the steps? Am I ready to move on? Make sure you've meleeed that door a couple times to ensure that you've heard all the dialogue possible. Next is the Lighthouse Dials step. This is just for our co-op players, and there are 2 ways to approach this. The first way is that I'm going to explain how you kind of figure it out mentally, and that's if you want to understand what's going on. And the second way is to just use the solver that we've built on Chronorium.com, just like we have solvers for things like the Gorod Krovi valves, and also for the murder mystery in Kawakujo. But before I show you the solver, let's start with how this works, and you can always skip forward should you so desire. So there are 4 color-coded dials inside the lighthouse. You can hold interact on one of the dials, and it will increase the number shown on that dial. And the distribution top to bottom of the lighthouse is yellow on the top level, orange below that, blue below that, and purple on the bottom. And we want these dials to all read 2 at the top, 7 below that, 4 below that, and 6 on the bottom. The problem is that turning one dial causes adjacent dials to also turn. So the trick to force this to work correctly is to turn the purple dial on the bottom level until it reaches the number 6. Then go and look at the blue dial and count how many turns it would take to reach the number 4, but don't actually turn it yet. So let's say blue is on 2 in that moment. You would say, okay, it would take 2 turns for me to get blue to 4 from 2. But instead of interacting with blue there, you're going to go up 1 more level, and you're going to turn the orange dial the number of times that we just counted for the blue dial. So if blue needed 2 down there, we're going to turn orange twice. Then, after turning the orange dial, stay there and count how many more times you would need to interact with it in order to reach the number 7 from its current position. Then go to the top level and turn the yellow dial that number that we just counted at orange. Then after that, turn the yellow dial again until it reaches the number 2 from its current position, while counting how many times you turned it, and then go to the bottom level and turn the purple dial by however many times you just turned yellow after you finish turning yellow with the orange dial numbers. So however many more you did on yellow is the number that you now need to do on the purple dial. Then, finally, you're going to go to the blue dial and turn it until it's on the number 4. Now, I told you that was a bit more complicated, right? Luckily, there is a much easier way to do this. You're going to go to Chronorium.com. That's linked in the description down below. It's my zombies website. I've been paying for the hosting for this thing for a decade now, just so zombies players like you guys can get through steps a bit more easily. It doesn't cost you anything. I'm just doing it for the love of the game. So head to the site and then enter your current dial values, whatever their distribution is, inside your lighthouse. And the site will then tell you how many times you need to turn each colored dial, and you can just do all of those top to bottom in the order listed on the site, and then you'll be done, and the step will be finished. If you find that tool useful, maybe consider subscribing or something, or just leave a comment saying thank you. That would actually make my day. So we now have our dials in position, and if you want to double check them, once again, it's 2746 top to bottom. Once you've checked to make sure that those are all in position for you, it's time to do 4 radios across the map that have to be interacted with in a specific order. And again, this is only for co-op players. The first radio is here underneath the power room on the ship. The second radio is to the right of Stamina Up on this barrel, and it's not to be mistaken for this other radio on the ground nearby. The third radio is near the zipline exit on the ship inside this red container, and the fourth radio is inside the Easter egg door room underneath the stairs just here. So interact with those 4 radios in the order I just showed you them, and when you've successfully interacted with each radio, you'll hear it make a sound which sounds like this. And once you've interacted with all 4 of the radios, you should then see a flashing light outside the map and hear some beeps alongside it, which sounds something like this. Now, if this isn't working for you, go back and check your dials. There's always a chance that one of your teammates accidentally messed up and they changed the code by accident, so check those dials before you do the radio step. And if it still isn't working for you, then try hitting the radios again this round, and if it doesn't work still, then try again the next round. Now, there's some weirdness about the way this works, because sometimes you'll do this successfully, you'll get the sound confirmation, you'll get the lights outside the map, but then you'll go to the next round and it will all disappear. Like the light will stop blinking and you'll be like, oh, did I reset it or what's going on here? But I've done that and I've been able to complete the Easter egg in that game despite the lights disappearing. But then in another game I did one of the Easter egg steps out of order and it weirdly kind of soft locked the game for me. So I'll describe that step now and I'll give you a word of warning so you can avoid that same problem happening for you. So for this next step, it's a solo and co-op step once again. It's the levers. Now, if you're in solo, you're actually totally welcome to do what I'm about to explain right at the beginning of your game once you turn on the power. That is fine. But in co-op, this is where the softlock potential comes in. So I recommend you only do this levers step at this stage of the Easter egg after you've done the radios that I described earlier. But because there is no radio step in solo, you don't need to worry about it. So solo's fine to do this start of the match. But what's the step? Well, it's very simple. You're going to go to the power room at the top of the ship, and you're going to interact with the right side of this wheel to spin it right twice. Then to the right of that wheel are 3 levers, and you're going to interact with the first lever once and the third lever 3 times. You'll know that you've done it successfully if you hear a foghorn towards the blinking light from the radios step in co-op, and that will also cause that blinking light to go from blinking to being always on. However, in solo, if you've done the levers at the start of your game, you'll hear this foghorn sound when you complete the security devices step, and so the sound cue is in a slightly different place. But for solo players, you should also now see a submarine with a glowing green beam shining at the lighthouse. Now we have another co-op only step here, but it's only a short one before we get to another solo and co-op step. So co-op first for the foghorns. There are 4 of them that must be interacted with in a specific order. The first is near this water in front of the lighthouse. Then you can reach the second horn by going towards the back of the lighthouse and going down the ice slide, and you can interact with it on the right side after you exit the slide. The third is back in front of the lighthouse by the path towards spawn, and the fourth, you can take the slide and then run straight towards the final horn to activate it. And you'll know you're successful when a green spotlight shines at the lighthouse. Now, as I mentioned a second ago, solo players will already have that green light, but this is how you get the green light in co-op. Now, if you're unsuccessful doing this, try redoing the foghorns when there's no fog on the map, although I don't think this makes a difference, at least in my testing. And like I said earlier, if you don't have a success here, then you can try again the same round, or if it still doesn't work, go to the next round. The next step is solo and co-op. It's the Lighthouse Green Light that we're going to be dealing with. Now at this stage, it is worth just having a mental checklist of things you want to ensure are correct in your game. Your dials should be correct if you're in co-op. You should have a green light beaming into the lighthouse, and you should also have gone over to the door and meleeed it to make sure that the characters are done yapping. And while you're doing all those checks, you need to start working on acquiring a VR11 from the mystery box. This is just pure RNG. There's no guaranteed way to get the VR11, but once you get it, one quick tip is it's very useful for controlling George. The Pack-a-Punch version will calm him down temporarily, and the Pack-a-Punch version actually calms him down until he's damaged again, so that can be very helpful for getting through these last couple of steps. Anyway, when you've got your VR11, go to the bottom level of the lighthouse and shoot a zombie with the gun. That zombie will turn into a human, and it will walk into the green light and then float upwards inside the lighthouse. While this is happening, you need to kill the zombie before it reaches the top. Now, you may find that you just don't have the damage required in order to kill the zombie in time. And if that's the case, that means that you're probably missing things like the Scavenger, Ray Gun, Mustang and Sally, or even the Matryoshka dolls. So if you do need DPS help, go spin the box and get a couple of those and then come back and try this again, or use the Pack-a-Punch machine. But in solo, you can kind of cheese this by downing yourself, as long as you have quick revive, and you'll then get a free Mustang and Sally while you're down, and you'll be able to use that to spam into the floating zombie. Now, obviously, you don't get infinite chances of doing it that way in solo, so be very careful. But either way, once the dead corpse reaches the top, a golden rod will float back down the green beam to the bottom level. You can pick the rod up and then return to the Easter egg door and insert it into the vacuum tube here, and then wait a moment for dialogue to progress. You can melee the door to let the team know that you've done what they asked you to do. And then when the fuse starts sparking, you're going to want to melee it. And then when the dialogue is over, you can pick up your free Wunderwaffe drop, which works in quite a weird way. You can't switch weapons until it runs out of ammo, and the ammo will refill with a max ammo. And there's actually kind of a permanent reward for this Easter egg, because if you do the egg in solo, George will then also drop the Wunderwaffe every time you take him down in your current solo game and any future solo game. So it's a reward that sticks with you and persists once you've done it once on that account. And that's the end of the Call of the Dead Easter egg. If it's been useful, like I said, drop a like first, maybe hit the subscribe button, maybe leave a comment saying thank you, but honestly, the biggest thing you could do to support me is to take a look at one of the other Easter egg guides linked on screen right now, click through to that, and go and do that with your friends. Honestly, the no-nonsense guides will always be there for you so long as you guys keep using them. So I've given you some options on the screen. Give them a try, and I can't wait to see you there. Bye for now.